This conference will now be recorded.
So good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Cantech presentation on EntraPass version 8. We're going to cover version 8 a little bit, but we're going to spend a lot more time on our IO module launch, which was launched and is available about a week or so ago. You all got the invite. We're very happy you guys are joining us. We're pretty excited about the little device. Makes our life a lot easier for us to work with. So let's begin. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat. Myself and my colleagues will be definitely answering them as we go along. So to start off with, we have new firmware that is available for our new controllers, for all our controllers, our KT1s, our KT400s, and obviously the IO module, which comes with generic firmware. It already comes with this firmware. You don't have to do anything with it, but we give you the firmware there. What we have new firmware launches, obviously in this version we are launching a new hardware. So if you wish to take advantage of the IO module, then you have to have the latest firmware for the respective controller you're using. Okay? Now, if you have the firmware, it comes with EntraPass 8.10. All you have to go do is upgrade your controller through EntraPass and to take advantage of this new module. So Cantech is very proud to introduce that 8.10 is available with EntraPass Special, Corporate, and Global Edition, along with the Hatrix platform. So it's available for all platforms in the system. If you wish to take advantage of the IO modules, you need to be at 8.10. And not only does the firmware need to be good on the controller, obviously, but you're going to have to upgrade to the newer version to be able to program these modules. So Cantech is very proud to introduce the IO module, a new hardware for our controllers. It's a new module. It's one module that has a dual purpose. So you don't buy a module for X and a module for Y. You buy one physical module. It has 16 terminals on it. Now, why do we call them outputs? Because it isn't just outputs. It is a configurable on the spot in the software as inputs or outputs. So in the software, you say, I want this module to be inputs. I want this module to be outputs, or even elevator outputs, or inputs again. But the cool part of all this, it's configurable in sets of 4. You don't have to dedicate the entire module as inputs or outputs. You can do 4 inputs and then 4 outputs, and then you could do 4 elevator floors. I wouldn't do that all that flexible, but you have that much ability to configure it in sets of 4. So if you're doing any kind of elevator, for example, and you have 4 floors or 8 floors, and you have 2 elevator cabs, this now one module can do 8 floors for 2 elevator cabs, or 4 floors for 4 elevator cabs. See how flexible it gets? If you have a status LEDs on them, if you use them as outputs, you have status LEDs that indicate if the LEDs are working. Very practical when you're doing elevator control because you want to test your setup. I was in an elevator equipment room one day and I was trying to see, are the relays working? Is the Cantech software configured correctly? So now you put a reader on the controller, swipe your card, and you can see which floors will work and which floors won't work based on the LEDs. Then you can give the elevator guy the cables, and off he goes. All the inputs, if configured as inputs, are configured as no end of line, single end of line, or can also be configured as double end of line supervision. So it's 2 inputs, 1 input, or no input. One of the cool parts of this is that there's no jumpers or pins to break or anything. It's all configured in EntraPass like we do it for our access controller. You can say this is a double end of line resistor. We give you all the resistors that you need when they come with the actual package. So you have, in this case, 32 or so inputs, resistors, if you're doing double end of line. The part number for the I/O module is the KT-MOD-IO16. So KT-MOD-IO16. It is compatible with the KT400s and the KT1s. So if you have any kind of KT400 or KT1, you can definitely use this module going forward with the correct firmware, obviously, and 8.10. Per controller, we can go up to 256 inputs and 256 outputs. That's a lot. You need a lot of modules for this, but definitely you can put a lot of hardware, a lot of stuff on this. One of the benefits of the I/O module is that it's RS-45. It is encrypted and communicates over the RS-45, whereas predecessors were communicating SPI, and the SPI was about 3 feet long. The new modules communicate over RS-45 and can have a total distance of 4,000 feet encrypted from the controller to the modules. It is also supervised. So if anybody cuts the cable or I lose power to my modules or anything like that, I will be notified that the module goes offline. Pretty cool? You guys excited so far? It is using the same COM port, the same RS-45 port as the very popular IO Smart readers. So if you notice carefully on the KT400s and KT1s, you have COM1 for RS-45, and that's to connect all your other Cantic controllers in a closet, let's say. And then you have your COM2. And all the trainings we've been doing, you've been asking us, what's COM2 for? We tell you future consideration. Now, with the IO Smart and the IO module, we connect those modules directly on the second COM port, on COM port 2. You can daisy chain, you can star, you can T-tap, however you want, as long as the total RS-45 is under 4,000 feet. That includes the IO Smart readers. Now, these modules are assigned via serial number, so they have a serial number on them. Unlike the KT300, where the serial number was with a tamper and you had to play with a tamper, we actually now write the serial number directly on the board. So you can take a picture with your phone or write it down on a piece of paper and enter it in EntraPass. Very simple, very efficient. As we said here, we can have 256 inputs and 256 outputs per controller, which can be used as elevator floors or inputs. Now, one thing that this module does not have are relays. These are wet outputs, and they have typically 25 milliamp output. They can go more depending on your power consumption, but typically each output will give you 25 milliamps. Now, if you're doing elevator control or other setups, you may want to use dry contact relays like the KTRM1s or others. You could buy KTRM1s and hook them up on the KT Mod Out 16 if you wish. But what you could also do is convert the third set of 4 terminals into an SPI. So in the software, you tell the system, let's configure this as SPI output. And then you can hook up relay modules, the KT-mod-REL8, directly onto the IO module. And now you can have your own line of dry contact relays attached to it. I can hook up to 8 relay modules into one SPI output off the IO module. What's the benefit of that, you ask? Why would I buy a module that does outputs and then put relay modules? The reason for that is I can now use them as relays for my elevator equipment. So let's picture this. I have a KT400 in a network closet, and I have next to it a mechanical room for my elevator. A lot of you guys did not want to put the KT400 in the same room as a mechanical elevator room because of safety purposes, dust, and other reasons, right? So now what we could do is put the KT400 in one location, pull RS-45, encrypted RS-45 to the mechanical room, put the module inside the cabinet, and then hook up relay modules under it. So the communication itself is encrypted, and then you go local SPI from the module down to the relays themselves. One of the benefits is that the relay module and the IO module all fit in the same cabinet. The KT mod-cab, which is the cabinet, can fit up to 6 modules in there. Any module, the IO module, the relay module, the input, or legacy output modules. So it was built with designing that it's going to fit with the existing stuff. Any questions, gentlemen and ladies? You guys like this? You see, Brian? No. Okay. All right. Very excited. I like to hear these things. The power output. The power output it varies a bit. Typically, the typical power requirement is 12 volts DC, 500 milliamps. That's a generic statement, and that's what most people will use typically on an average. Now, one of the benefits here, this module is an input and an output module. To give you an example, the typical output per terminal varies on the power you give it. So if I give it a 12 volt DC 500 milliamp power supply to power this device, right, each terminal will get approximately 25 milliamps, just enough to power a relay. Usually you don't want to power huge amounts of stuff with this. This will be able to power a little LED or a relay off that, which can power higher end motors and everything. But the maximum output per terminal is 12 volts, 750 milliamps. But the whole board can support 1.5 amps of power. So if I want to power 3 devices at for example, 200 milliamps, I could if I want, for a total 1.5 amps of power. Again, typically you can hook up one of these and have it powered by the Cantic controller for a 12 volt 500 milliamps, and then you got to put external power to power the other modules. We have a dedicated power terminal, and you could put as much power as needed. Don't forget that the KT Mod Relay 8, the relay modules we saw before, also require their own power at 12 volts, 330 milliamps. As I was showing you guys before, it is a multi-purpose unit, which allows us to use it as inputs, as relays, even elevator control, and SPI extenders. So if I want to extend, we call the XPI Extender, which is the ability to use the relay module for it. It's all programmed under the Cantic controller, under devices and controllers, and I'll show you guys in a few minutes where it's at. Okay, very simple to use, not complicated, very similar to the KT Mod Relay 8. All right, and I see some questions are coming in. Very good questions. I'll ask them. Very good. All right. One of these modules here are firmware upgradable. These modules are firmware upgradable inside the Cantech software. So now in the first revision of 8.10, you don't have any real firmware to upgrade because that's the only one we launched. In 8.20, 8.30, 8 whatever, if we like to add new features or do some adjustments, I'm available to add new firmware through the software. The firmware will come normally like all our controllers, but you'll be able to go to operations and controller and do a firmware upgrade. Like we do with the IO Smart module, it will push new firmwares to the inputs and outputs and to the IO modules and to the readers also. The benefit of this module, it is very powerful, very modern. It's state of the art. It has everything that the SPI modules didn't have. It has the best of the inputs of the 300s and the relay modules and a lot more. You can use this to expand your controllers. I did focus mostly on the KT400 because I did it on purpose for this. It is available also on the KT1 or the KT1 PCB, which is the same hardware realistically. But what it really gives a huge advantage is now the KT1 can do elevator control. It can do elevator control of 64 floors for that controller. So a lot of you guys have one or two elevator cabs, right? And you want to do X amount of floors. You can buy one KT1, put the relay modules, and then start using that for that one elevator. You don't need to buy a KT400 to do one elevator anymore. It's a huge increase to the capability of the KT1. You guys are excited about this? And it is available today. You can order it from your local distributor today and start using it on 8.10 automatically as long as you have the latest and greatest firmware of the controllers. Anybody have any questions so far? Some questions came in. So I'm going to go through the questions of the IO modules, and then we'll go through the EntraPass 8.10. So Matt has on the same RS-485 of the controllers. So the KT controllers, so the KT400s and the KT1s communicate over RS-485 off the first COM port. So the first COM port is dedicated to hook up many controllers together. For example, I have 5 controllers in a network closet. The second COM port, which is the one used for the IO Smart modules, the IO Smart readers, this is the same COM port, the same port that will be used for the IO module. So the IO module has the same encryption as the IO Smart, and they work together on the same RS-485, which is COM2. Matt, I hope that answers your question there. Lewis is a great question. Is it 62 or 64 modules in total? It is actually 62 modules because it is 256 inputs and 256 outputs. The number itself is not that important. If you're going to get to that many inputs and that many outputs, you want the most efficient way of getting to it. Now, we have to be very careful. You don't get more relays, like so there's another question, you have more relays and so on. The controller itself supports 256 inputs and 256 outputs. Now, if you wish to go with the old modules and half with the new modules, or input modules and outputs and relays, that's all fine as long as you get to 256. The shortest possible way is through the IO module, which gives you 62 I/O modules in total when you maximize everything. Does that answer your question, Louis? One second, I'm just reading the question. So Renato has a question: is where do I put the I/O module when I'm doing elevator control? He understands that the KT400 has to be in a cabinet. The I/O module can be right next to the KT400, or it can be very far. It goes up to 4,000 feet, as I was saying. But don't forget, if you have many of them, then your feet distance gets shorter. Now, what you could do is you can put the KT400 in one part of the building, pull RS45 into the elevator mechanical room, and put the I/O module inside the cabinet of the KT Mod Relay 8. The KT Mod Cab, which is the cabinet for the modules, is the same module cabinet for all of them. So whether you have 6 I/O modules for elevator, or you have one RS45 module and 3 or 4 relay module, it's the same one. And you put that inside the cabinet. All right. So, Ronald, yeah, follow-up question. Do I normally go with a KT400 into a cabinet into the relays? Yes, you can do that also if you want. I wouldn't pull all the cables of the elevator inside the KT400 cabinet. That would make it very, very messy. And you waste a lot of space because you can have a lot of relays. This is where you buy the KT cab dash, the KT mod dash cab, where you can hook up all together. All right. Any other questions? I see here there's no more questions on the I/O modules. If I missed any, let's discuss it together if you guys want. So don't forget, and a great question, Renato, is the return data on the readers is the challenge we have on the KT400. Don't forget that the readers can be RS45. The I/O Smart readers can be either RS45, and as we saw before, they can be daisy chain. They can be T-tap, star. It doesn't matter where on the RS45. So, for example, we can specify that all the readers go to the first I/O module, and then the RS45 back to the controller. Now, if you're going weekend with HID or other readers, you're best to go with the I/O Smart modules and the I/O Smart readers because they can take advantage of the encrypted output. Dave Hobson has another question. Do these outputs become invisible once they are assigned as an elevator? Dave, yes. Once you're configured as an elevator output, they are not visible in the Cantic software. Very similar to the existing relay modules. What you're looking for, and because I know your enhancement, is to be able to see the status of the outputs. That's not a module feature, more of an elevator feature. So the answer is it works like before, which is you cannot see the status of them. Oop, I like a lot of questions. It's very good. You guys are all interested. Can I combine SPI I/O modules and the RS45 to be used on the same product panel? Of course. If you wish, you can hook up SPI directly onto the SPI module, and you could also hook it up directly on the RS45 and then use the modules the way you want. We don't block you. Obviously, if you're using SPI, it's plug and play one after the other. And then if you're going RS45, you have your own RS45. And the way it's done is pretty simple. Under devices and controller, one second. When I choose my controller here, when I go to I have a new tab called IO module. We're all aware of the SPI module. And to your question, Jason, you add them like you normally would. Add a relay module and so on. Under the IO module tab, you can add a module, And we'll call this module 1 output, for example. Output. We enter the serial number that we have on the unit. Now, if you wrote down the serial number and your handwriting is a form of encryption, you can go to Operations and Controller and request a serial number, which will be given to you on the screen, like we'll do with the IO Smart Readers. And then, once we've set up the serial number, for every 4 terminals, we specify what these outputs are. These are used as elevator, and then I choose which floor, or as relays if I wish. This can be relays, these can be inputs. And number 3 here, terminals 9 to 16, you have them to be used as SPI. When you put them as SPI, this makes this terminal 9 to 16 available only to be used for the SPI. Now, you could put a relay module off that. Once I save it, I go to my SPI terminal here, and I add, there's a new tab here, there's output modules, there's input modules. Those are directly on the SPI, and it's how we used to add them before, like normal. But there's a new tab called output modules on IO module, is where you can add the relay module and attach to which module you want. So you configure your RS-45, and then you configure your SPI portion of it. Jason, I hope that answers your question. So that's the wonderful IO module that was launched with 8.10. 8.10 has been made available since approximately late June. The IO modules are available for the past week if you want to start using them. Now, again, last question on the relay modules. The total output and input for any controller is 256. However you wire it, SPI, RS-45, it's always 256. So Matt, if I do SPI half and half RS-45, it doesn't matter. It's still 256 outputs and 256 inputs. Hope that answered your question. So now some of the more popular features available with EntraPass 8.10 is the features that are available in the software. One of them is that we are fully compatible with the latest version of Microsoft. If you want to start using Windows 2019, we can start using it now with EntraPass 8.10, and we support it, and it starts working. Pretty cool, very easy. We keep up with Windows and updates, right? As you guys all are aware, Windows 7 is being end of life, I believe, this summer or by December, I forget. When that happens, we're going to stop supporting Windows 7 for the newer versions. So 8.20, for example, shouldn't be supporting Windows 7 if it's past the end of life date. So it's good for your customers. They can start upgrading using tokens and getting them up to speed with the latest versions, right? Let's take advantage of this. Yes, and thank you, Jason. The same thing goes for Windows 2008 server and Windows 7. They are end of life very, very, very soon. I think it's this summer or this winter, I forget. Once that happens, the newer version of EntraPass will not be supporting those versions anymore. So it's a good time to start upgrading your customers of January or before. Thank you, Jason. So another great feature we've added is if you ever ask yourself the who, the where, the which, the when, and the what. When you ever run a report, there's always something that's not there. You want more information. And we have most of them. Who did what, when, where. We kind of all have that. So we are introducing in 8.10 something called the audit trail. The audit trail is a new feature available for all EntraPass, special, corporate, and global. It's natively available for you to use. No license required, simple activation, and once you start using it, it's there. If you don't like it, you could turn it off. Doesn't cost anything, but you have to be at 8.10. What does it do? It gives me the ability of knowing a lot more on the system. We know which component was changed. I know that Bob Smith as a card holder was changed. I know when it happened. It was changed yesterday. I know who did it. Jason changed Bob. And I know that he did it from the workstation. But what I don't know is what fields were changed. I don't know what part of the card was changed. Did his axe level change? Did his pin number change? And what did he have before and what did he have after? All that information is now available natively through all of EntraPass and Hatrix. It is configurable under the Options menu and the Audit tab, where you can activate this report simply by checking the box. And it is on by default when it will start auditing card transactions and operator modifications. You could, though, enable every other table or every other component in the database. You're not limited to cards and operators. So I can know every time my controller was changed. How many times you guys go on a job site and you ask the customer, what did you change? And the answer is no, I didn't change anything. You knew that he changed something because you could run the report, but you didn't know which value he changed. Now we know which value was changed in the controller or in the door or in the card. Completely flexible to your liking. I can configure the retention of data of up to 16 transactions per item. So, for example, Bob's transactions were modified up to 16 times. Not 16 cards. That's nothing. It's 16 per card person, per door, per relay, and so on. Or 5 years of data retention. So we have a choice. You can do by item or you can do by date. To give an example, we have a system that has many thousands of doors that activated everything, all the audit log, and they are causing about 20 to 25 megs a day of storage. So the storage does go up. When you have thousands of doors, like 20,000 plus doors, 20 to 25 megs a day is not that much for auditing everything, not just the cards. I think it's a very cool feature, and people have been waiting for this for a very long time. One of the benefits is that in every component that you activate this, so for example, the cards and the doors, you'll be able to see a new button called an audit trail. It's a little green and red, yellow cylinder right here. Once you click on that, it will give you all the transactions that occurred for that component. For example, you're in the card, you search Bob, you click on this button, it will tell you everything that was done, the before and the after. It's pretty cool, guys. Great question. I see some nice questions in here. I'll get them in a second. And I also have the audit system. So I can audit per component. So give me what Bob's programming was before and after, right? I get to see all that. But if I want to see two people, I go to the next person. I run the report for that. Where it's a bit different, what if I want to audit a particular operator? I don't know what the operator has done. I just know he's done stuff. Under System and Operator, I can run a audit report on everything the operator has done or trim it down. Show me everything that this operator has done for cards, for example. And it will give you all the transactions. So you can audit a particular component or you can audit the entire operator if you want. Now, some of the questions that I had, and if this thing works, there you go, is what's the primary and the secondary attributes? Some items have secondary attributes. I'm going to give you a rule of thumb. You check both. If you have primary and it has secondary, you check it. For example, an access level, when I change the access level programming, I change the schedule in the drop-down for the access level, that's considered a primary change. But what happens if I change the schedule programming? That's going to affect the access level. Do I want to log that in my access level? So the second parent, the second layer of transactions is based on the primary. If I change the schedule or the door, I would like to know that that schedule was changed in my access level report. It's kind of important to me. That's what the secondary is. Not every table has. Some tables do, some tables don't. Rule of thumb is if you check the primary, just check the secondary. It doesn't cost you much more. All right? Peter, Clark, I hope that answers your question. Now, the reports are built into the Cantech workstation. So if you have a Cantech workstation, you can actually view these reports. Now, be careful. You can do the changes from anything, not just the Cantech workstation. Any changes you do on the web, on the mobile app, or the workstation, all that information will be available in the report. But the only way to run the report is currently from the workstation. In this, I'm auditing Bob Smith, the cardholder, and I could see at the very top that he's been modified 4 times by the same operator. So Bob Burton, the operator 33, has changed the person 4 times. And I can see what he's changed. He changed the before of the email from nothing to Cantech apps. He changed the end date from nothing to this particular date. So I could see the before and the after values from it. I can right-click and export all that information via CSV if I wish. So I can have all the reporting done and export this via CSV. Great for tracking, for any kind of specialized, high secure NERC or other type of environments where they need to know who changed what and what's going on specifically. This becomes very, very practical. All right? Now, one of the cool parts is under, for example, users and cards here. When I modify a card, not only can I see it from here, so I see that this person was modified. Let's click on this audit trail here. Oh, I have nothing to modify. Let's go modify this and that, for example. When I hit the audit trail, it tells me what was modified, by whom. This is the report, and I can right-click and export all the data accordingly. Under our desktops and our events, I can also right-click, hit audit, and show me the card. So every modification off the desktop can be right-click and audited directly. I don't have to go to the cardholder, find the transaction. Hey, what did he modify in that record? Bang, I can right-click and view the changes. Is that pretty cool? I know people have been waiting for this for a long time, so we're very excited about this one. A small little limitation, so you guys won't call me for this, is the field description is the English or the language of your preference translation. Some of these fields have not been translated because there's a lot of fields. We've worked very hard on the cardholder field, which is 90% of the requests, but if you go to the outputs or the relays, we also included the field name, which is the database reference. Notice carefully, email doesn't have a dash because in the database it's called email, but visually it should be called e-mail, right? So some fields need to be looked at via the field name because it'll have a description name in there. Any questions, gentlemen and ladies? Something that we're giving a boost to. So we gave a boost to the KT1 by giving it extra inputs and outputs. We gave it a boost for giving it elevator control, which is making now the KT1 a very powerful unit. But we didn't stop there. We also now, via the KT1 PCB or KT1M if you would like, we can do Apereo locks, which we could have done before. Prior to all this, we had one wired door and two wireless doors with the ASA Abloy Apereo. As of 8.10, the KT1 PCB now can also support up to 8 wireless locks. That's actually very new. So now it's at par with the KT400 on the wireless locks. So a lot of people that were deploying the KT400s, they were deploying them purely for wireless locks for the amount of doors. Now with the KT1, a smaller footprint, a smaller installation, but it can hook up many doors wirelessly. So 8 wireless and obviously 1 wired door. Pretty cool? As you guys are aware, if you buy the wireless locks from Cantech, you don't have to buy a wireless license. You simply buy the wireless locks and start using them. And we will give you the license for them. You still need them, but Cantech gives the licenses for those wireless locks if they're bought from Cantech. Another great feature that I actually really like, and it's not something you're going to sell millions more, but it's going to make your life a lot easier, is the ability of importing and exporting cards via CSV, which is nothing new. We had this for many years, but without the card number. Now we can use something called the unique ID, which is the reference ID of the card holder. And you can import and export people without a card number. Very practical for doing mass changes or cleanup of a database locally, for example. Okay? Any questions on this one? All our user-definable fields have been, all our link menus. So have you ever noticed when you go to users and cards, or users and access levels, or card types, there's a red L at the end. The little red L that looks like this, that's the link button. This link button will give you where everything is assigned to. It's telling me that the employee access level is tied to Mr. Ernest and Bob and Mr. Employee. But these are contractors. I have no idea who they are. I can add now a user-definable field that gives me more of an additional information into my report. But mostly, and most important of, we can now preview this report or save it directly as PDF or directly as CSV. That's pretty important now because before we had to have a PDF printer, and if I want to do any kind of sorting, I couldn't. Now we give the ability of going CSV to it if ever needed. Same thing goes with the print button. When I print a card holder, depending on certain prints, you'll be able to print into PDF or print to CSV if you ever needed to, mostly the access levels. So now you can export the programming of your CSV panel, you can export the programming of your access control and access levels via CSV, which is the Microsoft spreadsheet available for everyone. Any questions on this, gentlemen? Another cool feature in 8.10, besides the I/O module, 8.10 is all about the customer experience, the reporting, the cleanups, and a lot of reporting. If you notice carefully, audit trail we have the import export via cards, the report, right? The link button is a report. We have an activity report now. A lot of customers have been asking for this, and one of these features is give me the last transactions. I want to know where Bob has been in the past week, in the past 3 weeks. Well, we couldn't do that via a quick report, but that's a lot of work. I gotta go to quick reports. I gotta pick access events. I gotta pick which person Did I spell them properly? Do I have his right card number? I gotta pick all the events, pick the date and the time, and hopefully I get something right. Under users and cards, next to the last transaction is a new button called the activity report. Once you pick a user, you click on this button and all you have to do is enter the date and time. And this will give you the last transactions for that particular time frame for that user. It's kind of like a quick report, but very watered down for filtering. We already know the user because it's in the background. We already know everything about that person. All we got to do is tell me the date and time, and I'll give you all the access granted and denied events, and also the modifications if ever needed. Pretty cool. And there's a lot more of these that are available in the platform that are added to the system, right? Not just these reports, which are one of the most important ones. This feature was added very simply to make our life easier when we have multiple systems. For larger systems, people want to customize the EntraPass Go Pass, the EntraPass Go messaging. So we can control which smart link sends out the email. For example, they can accept the Go Pass request in a cloud load balancing environment, but we don't want them to all send the same link 10 times to the same customer. So now we can control who has access to what. But what I really like the most out of this is, you guys have been asking for this, is the ability to change the content of the email. And some of you guys here are dancing up and down for this, because now instead of saying, hello, Mr. Bob, welcome to the EntraPass world, you could say something else. You could change all the content except for the links in there. You could change the welcome message, the Go Pass message, the operator disabled. You can also change the footer. Instead of saying powered by Cantech, you can say powered by your company. Please call us at this number if you need assistance. Right? It's fully configurable from the EntraPass system under operations, under options, and email, customized email. You could change all that. Hope that answers your questions. Now, the last feature here is when, this is not a huge feature, but it's very important to remember it as text here. Starting 8.10, we will only allow people to upgrade, to restore backups of the same version. So in 8.10, it will only accept 8.10 backups. If you have an 8.00 or a 760, for example, you will not be able to restore it directly under 8.10. What you would have to do is upgrade the system on the old system, get it to 8.10, and then restore the backup within there. So every version has to be the backup has to be now version specific. It makes it more cyber secure, and it makes the restore process a lot smoother. Right? So if you guys are doing upgrades and you only have a backup, make sure you restore the backup on the version you're at, restore the backup, and then upgrade to the newest version with a valid cap, obviously. Does anybody have any questions on anything we saw so far today? All right. I see. Let me see if I can unlock Brian here. Wrong Brian. I cannot. All right. Anybody have any questions? Do you guys like the IO module? I think it's a pretty good add-on to our existing configuration, our existing tool set, which will make the controls even more powerful, specifically the KT1, which will become very, very powerful now with these extra modules. So let's see any other questions. Give me a call if you guys need anything, or email us at cantechapps@tycoint.com. You can always reach your local rep, and don't forget that the IO modules are now available, and hopefully we'll see you at the GSX show. Have a nice day. All right, thank you guys. Bye bye.